What up, Screen Fiends? I'm GB, and you're tuned in to Headz TV, where we like to discuss all the wonderful things appearing on your movie and your TV screens. In this episode, I'm going to give my review on the Netflix Marvel series Iron Fist, full series review. I'll be as non-spoilery as possible. So Iron Fist is part of the Defenders universe that they've created on Netflix. So it ties in, I'm sure most of you know this, it ties into Daredevil, Jessica Jones, Luke Cage, and then Iron Fist. Then the Defenders will be next. Alright, and I think they're doing a Punisher series too. So I was excited going into this. Maybe not as much as I was on previous Marvel Netflix projects. Luke Cage, to me, I know a lot of people loved it, and I wanted to love it. I love the character of Luke Cage. I always have. But there was something about that show that felt so networky. You know, ABC, NBC, CBS, CW. It felt like a show that belonged there and not necessarily on Netflix the way it was done. I felt like it could have been done gritty and hard and gave Daredevil a run for its money, Luke Cage. But I felt, not that I hated it, I liked it, but it was my least favorite of the Netflix projects, including after Iron Fist. Now, I know a lot of the reviews are really coming down hard on Iron Fist, and I'm not going to be too light on it. I got some bad things to say about the show as well, but to me, it was better than Luke Cage. I had a hard time getting through Luke Cage. There were points in Luke Cage where I was like, I really don't want to watch the next episode. I didn't feel like that with Iron Fist. The more I watched, the more I wanted to see. But I never got that same feeling that I got from watching either season of Daredevil or Jessica Jones. So, my feelings for Luke Cage aside, Iron Fist. Alright, it's a solid attempt at being different from the other shows. If you notice, each character, I should say, their show, their actual series, is very different from the next one. They really try and make it feel gritty and real, all the same, like it's all in the same universe, but they're all different kinds of shows. Like Daredevil is really a vigilante action-based show that's dark, gritty, and brutal. Jessica Jones is more psychological, but it's a detective story. It's a psychological thriller, also a detective story, and that's how it plays out. And with some action sprinkled in, of course. You can't do a superhero show without action, right? And then Luke Cage is more of I want to say a hood-based, like 70s sort of 70s blaxploitation, I believe it's the genre is called. You know, the black films from the 70s, Dolomite and Shaft, Superfly, these types of shows, right? So I feel like it was modeled off a lot of that. Even the music was very 70s vibe of those shows. You know, it had a very a feel of those types of shows. Movies, I mean, sorry. And then Iron Fist was supposed to be the martial arts show, right? It's supposed to be the number one. It's about like corporate America and stuff that actually goes on today in today's world. And then it's also supposed to be a martial arts show, a kung fu show. Okay, so I like the show. I already said that. So let me start with the things that I really didn't like about it, and then I'll kind of gush a little bit over. Well, not gush, but then I'll talk about the things that I really enjoyed. So what I didn't like about it first and foremost was it's the wrong showrunner. If you look at the history of the Netflix shows and their showrunners, just a little backstory on where I'm going. Daredevil was started by Scott DeKnight, who did Spartacus. So Daredevil was meant to be an action-based show, dark, brutal, and gritty. What was Spartacus? If you've ever seen it, you know. If you've never seen it, go check it out, because the Spartacus show that was on Stars, there's I think 3 or 4 seasons, I think, was a good show. It had a rocky start, but once it got into its groove, it really, really worked for me. So that's who started who created the first season, the producer, showrunner of the first season of Daredevil. The second season was Drew Goddard, who also understands action and comic book material. Jessica Jones, the woman's name Melissa Rosenbaum, I think Rosenberg. Sorry, I should have wrote it down. She ran Jessica Jones, and her experience was in number one. Nobody writes better for females than females. Men, I'm sorry, we don't understand females. Most men don't understand how to write for a woman when it comes to TV and movies. And that's why a lot of women fall into the same trope, and you could interchange many women characters in many movies and TV shows because men write them, and then they're all the same stereotype. They fall into like the same three tropes of a woman. But when a woman writes for a woman character, normally it feels real, and she feels like an actual person and not a man's view of a woman, an actual woman. So that's the start. They got a woman to run Jessica Jones, but she also understood. If you look at her past work, it's a lot of drama. And there's Dexter is in there, which is also very psychological. She did a lot of Dexter. It's a very psychological thriller, dark and gritty, which Jessica Jones had all of that. So she was the perfect showrunner for that. And then Luke Cage, you had, I'm sorry, his first name escapes me. His last name is Coker. His first name is Chidari, I think. I'm sorry, guys. I really should have wrote this stuff down. I'm trying to get better with that. But he's a black dude who understands hood stories. You know, he did Notorious. He did some of Southland, which is gritty street stuff, you know. So he understands that material. Plus, being a black man in America, he understands how to write for black people in America. That's the one thing I commended Luke Cage on. Luke Cage, the character, resonated with me because I do know a lot of black males who think and behave like Luke Cage in certain ways. By no means did they nail the character, and that's where the biggest problem I have with that show. But he understands the dialogue and how to write and make these people feel real in the world because it's part of his reality and his world. The same as Melissa Rosenberg is a woman, and she understands a woman's world and how to write for women. So with Iron Fist, they got this guy Scott Buck, who what's coming off my mind is 6 Feet Under, and a lot of other drama-based stuff. Which, okay, I get, because of all of the non-martial arts kung fu stuff in Iron Fist, the stuff around the business world, the world of business and the corporate stuff, that's the stuff that worked best for me. And that's because of their showrunner. They should have gotten somebody who not only understands that, good drama, and how to tell that side of the story, but more importantly for Iron Fist, is that it be a martial arts show. That's my biggest complaint, is that the corporate stuff worked. All of it was pretty good. I liked it. I really enjoyed that stuff. But when it came to a lot of the kung fu and the Buddhism and the philosophy behind it, a lot of it fell flat for me because they hired a showrunner who doesn't understand kung fu, martial arts, Buddhism, or any of the philosophy surrounding the Iron Fist character. I am by no means an expert of any of these things. I know good cinema. I grew up watching many martial arts movies, mostly kung fu stuff. And I saw where they were going. I felt where they were going with it. And if I wasn't such a fan of those movies growing up, maybe I would have appreciated it a little bit more. But I felt like they didn't understand that part of the character. Now, Danny Rand, I thought the casting and all that was fine at first, and I don't think it's Finn Jones's fault. I think it's the way he was told to portray this character, or the notes he was given, weren't enough of, they weren't right. because he should have had more of an Asian influence. He just spent 15 years, from 10 to 25, around, in an Asian type of community, learning, with monks, learning martial arts, ancient martial arts, and ancient Buddhist teachings and all that. And he didn't feel like that to me. He felt like a white guy, like a regular old white guy who was trying to kind of play mystical, and that didn't work for me. He should have been. I don't want to say you should have made him be act Asian, but he should have behaved like he was raised by Buddhist monks, um, instead of the way he felt. Okay, so that's my biggest complaint with the show. Two complaints with the show: wrong showrunner, wrong direction for Finn Jones. Now, I think they could have. Let me just touch on the racism thing for a second, real quick. I don't like to talk about this type of stuff, okay? I believe it's a real problem in the country, but when you talk about this thing, you bring out all kinds of people that you don't want to talk to, okay? So, I think they should have kind of went with the half American, half Asian, not with Finn Jones, with another actor, of course. I know it's different from the source material, and that's why I don't really have a huge problem with it, because it still works for me with him being totally white. But it would have been an interesting contrast to the team to have, you got a white woman, you got a white man, you got a black male, and now you have an Asian male in the Defenders, and it more diverse cast, rather than having, three white people and a black dude. You know what I mean? And if they add Punisher, 4 white people and a black dude. So I feel like I would have added a more diverse cast to the Defenders to make that choice by either making him Asian or at least half Asian, half white, because I think what the big part of the character is him being an outsider, and it's kind of what makes Davos, spoiler alert if you're not familiar with the comics, so against him being Iron Fist, because I think part of that is, you're an outsider, dude. Like, you're not from where we're from, you know what I mean? You shouldn't be the Iron Fist. So I understand if that's, important to them when they're making that show. But I feel like they should have made him half Asian, and it would have made the racism thing calm down a little bit, I think. But I think the worst part about it was that Asian culture wasn't represented properly in the show. And by that, I mean, by a man that comes back from being in a monastery, I'm going to say it one last time, from an Asian monastery for 15 years, should behave a little differently. Okay. All right. So with that being said, the show was, the performances were fine. It felt a little soapy at times, just like Luke Cage. Felt a little networky at times. They really did not go out with special effects. And, for a first season, I guess I get it. But I look at a lot of the stuff that's on TV now, even stuff that's not that good quality, and the special effects on TV are getting better and better. Even if the show is not great, you look at a lot of the special effects on the superhero shows especially that are going on TV right now, and they're getting better and better and improving. And I don't see why, when you watch Iron Fist, if you haven't watched it yet, you'll know what I mean. The Iron Fist power looks cool. But then there's a lot of other places where there should be good special effects, and they just aren't. Kunlun fell flat for me, everything we saw in there, and don't get me started on the dragon. Do I think they needed to have Game of Thrones level dragons or Smog, level dragons? Absolutely not. But they could have done a lot more than Red Eyes in the Dark. That's a big spoiler. Sorry about that, but it's not really spoiling the show as a whole. So those are the things I have a problem with. The casting to me was all good, pretty much all around. I probably would have went with a different actor than Finn Jones. I would have went with somebody who had a prior martial arts experience or had enough time in pre-production to train the actors properly. Because, like as I said before, I see where they're going with the martial arts, but some of it felt so rehearsed. It was like watching Dancing with the Stars. And real Kung Fu should never feel like that. It should be all, you know what I mean. You've seen Kung Fu movies. Okay. So I like the casting on everybody. I loved Colleen Wing. I thought her action sequences were by far better than anyone else's. and I really enjoyed the actress, just Jessica Henwick. She, to me, did a good job. I really enjoyed her. No complaints there. Claire Temple felt forced to me. She felt natural. In every other show she was in, she felt natural. But in this show, they make her more of a main character halfway through. And to me, it feels forced. It feels like she was just pushed in to have her be in the story somehow. And they took her away a little bit from the night nurse and went into something else to where like she's kind of a superhero in her own right. And I don't know. I'm not against women kicking ass or getting into the action, but it it was like my feeling about Lois Lane and the way that she's been portrayed in the newest DC movies. I don't know. This character doesn't feel right for the action they're putting her into, and it just felt forced to me. So there's a lot of other callbacks to the other Netflix shows. I'm not going to get into all those on this in this video, but of course you like those because it ties it into the world. There's even a couple references to the Marvel Cinematic Universe as a whole, so you gotta like when they bring all that stuff in and it makes it feel like it connects. This show definitely feels like it belongs with the other ones, but it's one of the weaker entries. This and Luke Cage to me were the ones I was most excited for when I heard about all this, and they are my least favorites of the show. I enjoy Jessica Jones a lot. I enjoyed Daredevils 1 and 2 a lot. But these two, there's too many things I think they did wrong, and it affected the show as a whole for me, and not just a couple episodes. So, what would I give this show? Out of 5, I would, cause I'm a Marvel Netflix fan. I like to tell you that I give I have a biased opinion of these shows because I'm such a fan. So you could take a half a point off of this one. I'm giving it a 3.5. I'm giving Luke Cage a 3. I give this one a 3.5 out of 5. If you're not a huge Marvel fan, I want to give it a 3 also, but I liked it better than Luke Cage, so I got to give it a half a point more than Luke Cage. I have to. But all in all, it's not a terrible show. If you like the superhero stuff, you like the Netflix stuff, give it a try. It's definitely better binged. I would not recommend watching this an episode here, an episode there. I recommend, you watch them in batches of at least 3 or 4 at a time, if not more. If this show was a week to week, I probably would give it an even lower rating and wouldn't like it. It takes a while to get going, but once it gets going, this is a show that I think has good momentum. I did not mind the second half of the season like most people did. A lot of people complain more about the second half than the first half, but I felt the first half was the weaker of the two. Check it out. Marvel's Iron Fist. This is a show that I think is worth watching, especially if you're a fan of the genre, especially if you're a fan of Netflix, because a lot of their shows, there's things that work and don't work about them, and almost all their shows work better as binges. If you're a fan of Netflix, you know that by now. So give it a shot. Like I said, I'm giving it a 3.5 out of 5. Definitely not great by any means, but it's good. It's decent. And it's better than a lot of the stuff that's on network TV. It's better than all the stuff that's on network TV, in my opinion. So, Marvel's Iron Fist, give it a shot. That's it for this video. I know I was a little scatterbrained as always, but I think I'm getting more and more streamlined. One of these days, I'll start writing stuff down. Thanks for watching. Got anything to say? Sound off down below. Let me know your feelings, anything you got going on. You want to be part of the Screen Fiend fam? Like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. And that's it for this video, and I will see you next time.